What's going on, everybody? My name is Garrett Olds, local realtor here on the Emerald Coast. In this series, I cover all things Freeport, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons between going new construction versus resale, some things to look out for on both sides, and ultimately, which makes sense for what you have as a priority. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is new construction. When we're looking at new construction builders, we'll go ahead and break it down into three different levels. We have the value affordability, we have the mid-tier, and we have the higher end, more luxury type builders. So when we're looking at the value / affordability, some of the main ones you're going to see a lot of DSLD, you're going to see some Lennar, but the main one in this area is going to be DR Horton. A lot of the houses in Freeport by these builders are going to fall between that $200,000 to $400,000. Now, when we're going into mid-tier, this is going to be have a little bit nicer finishes, a little bit higher quality build, a little more attention to detail, a lot of brickwork, just a little bit better craftsmanship. These are going to fall between that $400,000 to $500,000. And most of the builders you're going to see here is going to be Stratton Homes or Holiday Builders. Now, lastly, the higher end, these are going to be the 500,000 plus. These are going to be focusing very heavily on attention to detail and making sure that everything is exactly to the standards that they have set out for themselves, or if it's a custom build, everything that you're wanting, they're going to do everything they can to achieve it. This is going to include Randy Wise and some other smaller custom builders like Silver Lake. Let's go ahead and jump right into the pros of this new construction. The main and most obvious thing is that everything is brand new. You're not going to get into this house and have to immediately replace the air conditioner because it was just put in. And oftentimes they have warranties on these appliances, so you're really going to have nothing to worry about for the first couple of years that you're there. You're going to have very low maintenance in the first couple of years. You're also going to have much better efficiency ratings on some of these appliances. And you're going to have modern floor plans. You're going to see a lot more of the open concept style. Everything is just going to be very clean, very neutral colored, and just really modern as far as overall aesthetics go. And then lastly, a lot of these new construction builders are going to have very, very good incentives. Because we are currently in a buyer's market, many of these builders need to try to push inventory by doing rate buy downs, by offering closing cost assistance. Maybe they'll do a little bit of a reduction in price. They're very hesitant to do that simply because of comparable sales when going down the line in appraisals with lenders. So those are the main pros when we're talking about new construction. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty good idea of kind of the awesome things that you get when going new construction. Let's go ahead and jump into the cons. So one of the first things that we'll talk about is that there is sometimes a pretty good turnaround between when you go under contract with a new construction and when it's finally done building. If you're starting from the ground up, expect it to take anywhere between 6 to 12 months. Fortunately, there are quite a number of quick move-in homes that you can jump into that won't take that 6 to 12 months, but won't have the customization and options that you would if you built from the ground up. Another con of new construction is that a lot of the times the builders put the lots to be very close together and they're pretty small, sometimes as low as just 1/10 of an acre. So if you're somebody that values a little bit of space between your neighbors or a bigger backyard, new construction oftentimes doesn't necessarily have that. There are outliers, of course, like Holiday Builders with the half-acre lots, but in general, they're going to be on the smaller side. The next thing is that while you might see the house listed for in the 300s, let's say, by the time you're done adding all the different upgrades or packages for landscaping, you might spend a little bit more than you're expecting to. So if you're looking for something that has a very transparent number attached to it, sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge to know exactly how much and how long that new construction might take. Another thing that's super important to consider as well is that you're going to be purchasing in a new construction community. So unless you're one of the lucky ones that gets one of the last houses that are built, chances are you're going to be living kind of in a construction zone. And I don't know if you've driven through a construction site, but it can be pretty noisy. You know, workers going back and forth with all their tools, all the drilling, you know, just the general noises of, you know, construction, things being built. I think it's also incredibly important to note as well that even if you are going new construction, always get an inspection. The inspection can unveil stuff that otherwise could go unnoticed. And the builders are not perfect. They make mistakes, things happen, and that's just part of the business. But if you don't have an inspection and you miss something, it can cost you thousands of dollars. So even though things are new and you think everything's gonna be perfect when being built in, check with a professional to make sure. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into the resale side of things here, starting with the pros. So the first pro that we're going to talk about is that things are laid out right in front of you. You know exactly how much it's going to be cost. You know exactly what you're going to be buying. So there's really a lot less surprises. Outside of course, the inspection, it's really just right there for you. So you know what you're getting off the jump. The other thing is that very oftentimes you're going to have larger lots and a lot more established landscaping. Things have had time to grow in and really become nice and beautiful and full. The other pro is that these communities are often located in a lot quieter, more established areas. So places like you know, the Hammock Bay, you can drive through it and drive through all these different communities, and while they're super beautiful and well established, it does have an air of peace and tranquility that some of these new construction areas still, you know, they're still working on it. The last thing I wanted to touch on is that from going under contract to closing on resale, typically it takes around 30 to 45 days with a conventional mortgage. So it's not going to be 6 to 12 months like a new construction, it's going to be much shorter. So it's a lot easier to sort of time out, you know, what the timeline is on actually getting into a home. All right, there you go. So that's some of the pros that you get when you're going resale, but let's go ahead and pivot into the cons of some of these, you know, older homes, which most notably is going to be the fact that you're going to have older appliances. So the 4-point, which is AC, electrical, roof, and plumbing. These things might be a little bit older, maybe they need maintenance, or potentially they even need to be replaced. So it's essential that you know those 4 items at least when going into making an offer on some of these houses. Another thing about the older homes, which is pretty obvious, but it's potentially a little bit dated. So you might need to budget a little bit of renovation costs to make it exactly how you want it to be. And then the last thing, of course, is that because it's resale, you're not getting any of the incentives or any of the financing perks that you can get when you're going in new construction. Now, depending on the market conditions, currently we're in a buyer's market. You have a little bit of flexibility, especially when it comes to purchase price or even closing cost assistance. These are all really helpful things to help get you into a home for less, but you don't have some of the fantastic incentives that you might get when you're going new construction. You know, you've seen, you know, buy downs into the 4%, where right now we're sitting at like well over 6%. So that's kind of hard to beat because it keeps your monthly mortgage payment so much lower. All right, so that's the pros and cons of both resale and new construction. But what makes sense for what person? Well, in general, new construction is really good for people that are okay with taking a little bit more time. They want more customization, and they don't want to have to worry about anything right after they're moving in. They want something that is totally turnkey and ready to go for them and should not have any issues right after closing. On the other hand, highly recommend people to go resale if you're okay with maybe putting a little bit more work down the line if it is an older home, or if you want to move quickly, or you want to negotiate purchase price, or you're looking for a more established neighborhood. So it's really just up to the person and their individual wants and needs. Location, of course, is the other thing too, because the established neighborhoods are in their areas, and the new construction, that's in their areas. So definitely drive to all these different areas, feel it out, and just kind of make that decision for yourself. Yeah, so there you go. At the end of the day, it comes down to your timeline, budget, and kind of how you want to live and what you're looking to do. So I hope that helps. There's a lot to consider, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. My name is Garrett Olds, local realtor here in the Emerald Coast with Sea House Realty. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.